CJAD 800 and CJAD.com.
We hear these stories quite often. Police shooting of unarmed black men. One of the incidents happened in Miami. And again, an interaction with law enforcement that went horribly wrong. And after more than 30 years in law enforcement, the last 22 as a senior special agent with the Department of Justice, one cop, Bobby Kimbrough Jr., wanted to vote the next chapter in his life to make sure that we did not have these unfortunate interactions with law enforcement. He's got a new book called Surviving the Stop, which offers advice to officers and to citizens on how to keep these incidents from turning into deadly confrontations. Bobby Kimbrough, a 30-year veteran of law enforcement, joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for having me.
Bobby, tell me, when did you first decide, why did you decide you had to write this book?
Well, I decided I had to write it several years ago, some of the incidents that I was starting to see take place throughout the United States. And I decided that we have to change the atmosphere. We need to educate people on how we should interact and how, when we come in contact with the police department, there's a relationship and an experience that's about to take place. How do you survive that intact?
Now,
at the same time, law enforcement managing emotions under pressure. How do we bridge that gap between the police and the community?
When you were a cop, did you see routine stops that ended badly?
Oh, definitely. One thing people say, there's no such thing as a routine stop. Every stop is different because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with human beings. As an African American, I've experienced being stopped as well as I've stopped people in my career. I was a local police officer in North Carolina, and so I understand the dynamics that take place along as the psychological effect of being stopped by law enforcement. And as a special agent in my career, I've been stopped and wondered, why did they stop me as well? So I understand both sides of the coin.
When you understand both sides of the coin, tell me about the times you were stopped. What were those incidents like?
Well, I can give you several. I'll give you one coming back from Georgia. Myself and another African-American agent, special agent with the government, we were traveling back from Georgia during an operation in Georgia. We were stopped on 85, headed back into North Carolina. We were still in South Carolina, and we were stopped. The gentleman said that we were impeding traffic. He walked up on us and asked license registration. Okay, I'm wondering, why are you stopping us? Well, he had no reason why stopping us. He said we were traveling slow. That was the best answer he could give us. And when we presented our credentials as to who we were, he said, "Hey, you guys have a great day." I mean, I can give you countless stories.
Now, so wait a second. So do you think he stopped you because you were both black?
In my personal opinion, I think that he stopped us because, one, the vehicle that we were driving what we call a hoopty. And we looked, I guess, stereotypically, we didn't look like federal agents. We looked like, in his opinion, there's a stereotype. We all have biases. In law enforcement, people say, well, you call it profiling, you call it this. We all have biases when we see somebody. We form an opinion of them. We do that. That's a human nature trait. When you see someone, you form an opinion. Either they're beautiful, they're attractive, whatever it may be. So in his opinion, I don't know what his opinion was, but he had no reason to stop us. But he stopped us. And once he realized who we were, okay, so I get it, but at the same time, when you stop, and I want people. Yes,
let's get back to that incident. When he realized who you were, that you were law enforcement officers yourself, he said, "Go ahead, have a nice day." What would he have done if you would have been two people who were unemployed?
Well, you know what? Had we been two people unemployed, his next question would have been, okay, license, registration, you might have searched the car, you got any guns, you got any weapons. He went down through his litany of questions.
Right.
Typical questions that would be asked on a traffic stop.
Do you think that problems are getting worse in the last few years, or is the situation improving?
The statistics say that I guess things are getting better. I think we're getting better, but it's like a storm that has passed. It's going to take a second before we see the sun appear again. And this climate that we're in now has got to cease. It's us against them. law enforcement in a bad light. Now, granted, there are incidents that I disagree with that have happened throughout the last year or two. I disagree with some of them. But when we have incidents like that, we can't think law enforcement with this broad brush that all law enforcement is bad. Those individuals that step out of the scope of their job need to deal with them with the full extent of the law and remove them from the process. We can't say that because they're bad. They're bad everything in every profession, whether it be attorneys, whether it be accountants, whether it be school teachers. They're bad in every profession.
I want to mention to you, last week I interviewed somebody from Black Lives Matter, and he was saying that he's not going to vote for the Democrats until they do something for the black community that really will make a difference. He said, for instance, one of the things he demanded was that it should become a felony to file a false police report. Do you agree with that?
Here's my take on it. I think it should be against the law to file anything false against anyone, black, white, or indifferent.
Right.
I respect Black Lives Matter. I get it. I understand what's going on in America. I respect their cause. I understand their cause. But at the same time, being a black man, I have black boys. I have a black father. But I have a mother that's biracial. My mother is biracial. My daughter-in-law is from India. So do I put more emphasis on her life or my mother's heritage than I do my children? And another thing about that is we're busy trying to get someone else to see that we matter. As an African-American man, the first thing I want us to do is recognize that we matter. It doesn't matter. I don't need no one else to validate who I am.
Now, he also said that he thought, this man I interviewed from Black Lives Matter, this Black Lives Matter activist, he said that most cops are terrific. They're good cops. But he said what happens is that the good cops protect the bad cops. Did you find that to be your experience?
No, I don't think. I think that it's like anything. I don't think that we protect, never have protected. Because we don't want the smell of anything being bad about our profession. Most of the times, I have found that bad cops are ostracized within a group. They're ostracized because no one wants to get caught up in it. No one wants to spend years of their career serving and protected and to be ostracized or brought up on some charges or something. So now the crime that I've seen within law enforcement, if you're doing something that you have no business, trust me, OPR, Internal Affairs will definitely be looking at you. So I don't think that's necessarily the case.
My guess is
cover for one another.
My guess is Bobby Kimbrough Jr. His new book is called Surviving the Stop. What do you think, Bobby, is the most common reason that traffic stops get out of hand and out of control?
Traffic stops get out of hand from what I have seen in my career, and even the traffic stops that I have read about, is that from the time the stop takes place, there's an experience about to take place. Your experience that you give me will determine the behavior that I give back to you. So once the two parties meet, the officer and the person they stopping, right away a relationship is building. And somewhere along the way, communications go bad. Managing emotions under pressures go bad. Conversation goes sideways. Disrespect takes place. Because when an officer stops you, there's a lot of leverage and leeway that he has. Anything from a verbal conversation, a verbal warning, a written warning, a citation, to last but not least altercations and the loss of life. Along that way, whether you think he is right or she is wrong, it doesn't matter. What you're trying to do is survive the stop. Obey the law. Obey what he says. If he is wrong and he violates your right, let's take that Monday through Friday in a courtroom. On the side of the road is not the place. That's where we're going wrong at. Because only two things can happen: coexist or conflict. And when an officer gives you what he believes is a lawful command, he's either going to do one or two things. He's either going to give you a choice to do what he asks you to do, or by force.
Sometimes controversial, always compelling. The Tommy Schnermacher Show on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800.
My guest has had 30 years in law enforcement. The last 22 as a senior special agent with the Department of Justice, Bobby Kimbrough Jr. His book is called Surviving the Stop, offering advice to officers and the rest of us on how to keep these incidents from turning into deadly confrontations. Coming up on the news at 11, there's a state of emergency in Maryland because of deadly flooding, a Donald Trump campaign hitting another snag, and a Russian helicopter shot down Syria while delivering humanitarian aid. More details on those stories coming up at 11. Bobby, what should someone never do at a traffic stop?
Oh, you should never confront the police or in a hostile manner, because once you do that, all the lines of communications have broken down. I mean, you should obey what he's saying do. I know, when you say obey, you say, well, I got to submit myself even though he's wrong. All I'm saying to you is that survive the stop. The objective is survive the stop.
The objective is to survive the stop. This person saying people die even when they comply, and that wearing rose-colored glasses, ignoring the problem that rotten apples are getting away with murder. What would you say to that listener?
Well, I'd say to that listener that I'm not wearing rose-colored glasses because, as I said, as an African-American, I've been stopped numerous of times. I have 5 boys that are African-American that are driving that have been stopped and ticketed. I know the problem firsthand. Both sides of the coin. What I'm saying is that when you're stopped, now there are some incidents that are happening across America that I disagree with, that have happened, that I totally disagree with. But that doesn't mean that all law enforcement is bad. And you stand a better chance of following these rules or these teaching techniques that we're talking about than you do just being a renegade. Say, what, I'm not going to do what you say. I'm not going to do this. Because then you're going down a road of point of no return.
How do police need to improve their tactics and their habits? What advice would you have for them?
Oh, well, we do a thing called surviving the shield. And what you talk about is realizing that your strongest weapon is your communication skills. How you approach it. That's what you want. How do you approach it? You can approach it with a certain degree of respect for the driver while approaching it with a certain degree of security for yourself. I mean, you have to, the first thing, when you first meet someone, whether it be on a traffic stop in your personal life, the first 3 seconds of that meet determines a lot of it. How I meet you, what you give me in terms of your body language, your verbal, is how we say things, because words matter. Words affect emotion. And once emotions come into it, anything's subject to happen.
So, in other words, if you say yes and go along with the police officer, even if he's wrong, you're more likely to be safe. And is that what you're saying? Then what do you do afterwards if he was wrong?
If he is wrong or she is wrong, if you've been stopped, I was stopped several months ago. I was coming through a small town, driving an official government vehicle, what we call OGV. I was pulled over. When the guy walked up to the side of my car, he said, "How old are you, sir?" And I said, "I'm 53 years old." He said, "You're old enough to know better than be speeding." Right away, when he said that to me, I'm old enough to know better, my emotions like, who is he talking to like that? I'm old enough, as if I'm a child. Right away, that relationship went downhill. But knowing who I was and knowing that I had the upper hand, I said, "Yes, sir." I let him make a complete out of himself. And then once I got to the point to where we had enough of this verbal judo going on, I said, "Sir, I'm a special agent, U.S. Department of Justice. My credentials are in the bag over here. You mind if I reach for them?" And he said, "Who do you work with?" And I told him. And then I named someone in his department who just happened to be in his line of chain of command, who went to OPR, well, in his case, internal affairs. And right away, he backed up off of that. And so as he was saying, "Have a nice day," I said, "Sir, how old are you?" And I said, "You're old enough to know better than be wearing a mohawk in a uniform. You may want to change your hairstyle." And that was my way of throwing back at him. So when you feel that you have been done wrong, what I suggest is that you go ahead and take the ticket, and file a formal complaint.
Now, in your case,
after you've left.
Yeah, in your case, you could tell him who you were, and it made a difference. What happens when somebody that doesn't have that kind of job, when they don't know his commanding officer? Same rules apply?
No, I tell my children, my boys, and I call them children that are driving now, people don't know who they are when they're stopped. What I tell them is, you say yes, sir, no, sir. And you don't have to say yes, sir, no, sir. You can say yes. Say yes, no. You can be very polite. Follow the command and instruction that he's giving you. Give him no reason to do anything but what you want to do. Because here's the one thing that you have to remember when you get stopped. Once you get stopped and you've driven off, there's a part on the ticket where it says comments. That officer is going to write down comments. So when you go into the courtroom and you go in there with, say, speeding, that speeding ticket could be reduced to something as simple as improper equipment. But a lot of that goes into the comment section. Were you rude? What did you say? The traffic stop continues long after you've driven off. There's things you got to look out, your insurance, the points, the penalties, and even your driving record, which will come back to haunt you years later. You get into an altercation, assault a government official. Those things that you got to think beyond the stop. What happens if I do this? Stop reacting and respond. I'm not going to react. Because I could have said something really rude to the guy when he said, how old are you? I could have said something really rude to you, like old enough to be your father. I could have said something really rude to him. But I said to myself, I'm not going to react to him. I'm going to respond to him. I told him who I was, how old I was, and I let him continue on his line of questioning.
What do one of our listeners wants to know, what does the police community think about your book?
Well, you know what? What I did, I went, before I even put the book on the public market, I let different officers read it, whether they were state, local, even the U.S. attorney who did the forward on it. And I said to them, I want your honest opinion on this book. I never told them who the author was. I left that off.
Right.
When they got the manuscript. And they agreed, I think you need to do this. I think you should do this. I think you need to tell the truth. And that's one of the things I promised that I would always do, right, wrong, and different. Because 30 years in law enforcement, I love those men and women that serve and protect. And while I am sorry, I pay respect to those that have lost their lives on both sides of the coin. I'm sorry that those families have experienced that. I wish we could redo that. And I'm sorry for those have lost their lives because serving and protecting. We got to come together. We got to start having dialogue. We got to start being transparent. We've got to start respecting one another on all aspects of life.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining me, Bobby Kimbrough Jr. The book is called Surviving the Stop. You're listening to the Tommy Schumacher Show on CJAD. Stay with us.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, CJAD.com.